What's up guys, I'm BTC. Reaper is one of the best anti-tank heroes in the game, and even though we're in the middle of a triple tank meta, for some reason, Reaper is almost never used. This is one of those videos that I really hope the Overwatch dev team gets to see, so please be sure to like and share this video out. Recently, Reaper got some small improvements to the pattern for his attacks and a slight buff to his passive lifesteal, but neither of these really solve the problem that Reaper has. Now, before I go into what the problem is and how it can be solved, let's take a look at where Reaper is right now. For almost 6 seasons, Dive was the meta. It dominated all professional matches and a significant part of the competitive ladder. One of the most important parts of this was Winston, and yet Reaper, the character that counters Winston the most out of the entire roster, was never used. More recently, there has been quite a bit of triple tank lineups. There are 2 versions of that. One has Winston and the other has Reinhardt. Once more, Reaper is almost nowhere to be found. Reaper was specifically made to be an anti-tank character, and while he may be best at dealing with a Winston, he can also be quite effective against any of the other heroes in the tank role. I went and checked in the most recent World Cup at BlizzCon, and I found that almost every single match had a Winston, and exactly 0 had a Reaper. I also looked at the hero stats on the competitive ladder, and while Winston and the other tanks are near the top, Reaper was at the bottom, second only to Bastion. I think you guys get the picture. He's in a bad spot. But why? With the amount of Winston use and the triple tanks, Reaper should be one of the best picks in the game. You'd think so, but clearly he's not. The reason is quite simple. Reaper is a close-range character who, unfortunately, seems to have a difficult time getting in close. Sure, if he's right next to you, he can do a ton of damage, but he just can't get there most of the time. He has 2 abilities, Wraith Form and Teleport. Wraith Form is easily one of the best abilities in the game. Complete invulnerability, a small movement bonus, and it reloads his shotguns automatically. But this is not an ability that you ever want to use to initiate a fight or to get into position to simply start one. Wraith Form needs to be used during the fight to buy yourself some time, or as an escape mechanic. You never want to use Wraith Form to initiate. On the other hand, you have his Teleport, which is probably one of the worst abilities in the entire game. First, it is extremely bright and loud, meaning every enemy within 100 square miles is going to know that you're there. They recently lowered the volume, but it's still incredibly loud. Shadow Step is also the slowest ability in the entire game, with a cast time of 2.5 seconds. Not only that, but once you begin the cast, you lose complete control over your character and are at the mercy of everything going on around you. Because of all that, Shadow Step is the only truly out-of-combat ability in the game. Every other ability can be used in the middle of a fight and be effective. If you try to use Shadow Step to get into a fight, you will get destroyed. If you're already in a fight and you try to use Shadow Step as an escape, you will also get destroyed. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying the ability is worthless. It does have its use, but that only comes in the form of before a fight even begins. You can use the Shadow Step to put yourself in a position that might be more optimal prior to the start of a fight, but as I mentioned, if you try to use it during the fight, you're gonna get destroyed. There is another ability that has a similar function that you can compare it to, and that's the grappling hook that Widowmaker has. Yes, she uses it most often prior to a fight in order to get into a good position, but unlike the teleport, she can also use it in the middle of a fight to disengage and to escape from an enemy Genji, for example, that's trying to go after her. So yes, you can use it at the start, but also during. The Shadow Step, you can't do that. On top of all of that, Shadow Step is easily one of the most frustrating abilities in the game. If you have ever tried to teleport on Lijiang Tower, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The targeting is quite finicky and downright infuriating. I mean, look at this! Look at that! What is even going on there? that's just one example. There are plenty of other places that do the exact same thing. And don't get me started on unbroken fences on top of high ground. So there you have both of Reaper's problems. First, that he needs a better tool to engage in fights, and second, something needs to be done about the teleport. And it just so happens I have a great solution for both of them. Replace the teleport with a new ability that functions something like a leap teleport hybrid thing. Let me explain. There's a scene in the recall animation where Reaper moves from one room to another in order to fight with Winston. While it may have originally been intended to mimic his Wraith form, it only partially resembles the ability as we see it in game. You can see Reaper here is only in that smoky Wraith style from the waist down, and everything above looks normal. In-game, Wraith form ability makes Reaper go completely into that smoky form. So I thought maybe he could have an ability that looks similar to what we see in the animation, where he is only partially in that Wraith form, and we could have a new ability based around that. The new ability would need to be something that allows Reaper to engage into a fight quickly. I figured the best way to do that is to make it to function kind of like a leap, blink, dash sort of thing. This would be horizontal movement only, with maybe a little bit of vertical height just during the ability itself. But imagine a Winston leap, but where he can't gain any vertical mobility from it. Like, you can't aim it upward, is what I'm trying to get at. I made a quick little mock-up of how this would look. Here's the starting point. Here is where he activates the ability and goes into a partial Wraith form and is slightly off the ground. Then finally he lands and returns to normal, where he can engage. As for the specifics of this ability, the current teleport is on a 10-second cooldown, and I think that would work with this as well. The distance traveled would have to be a fixed amount, probably around 14 meters, which is the same as a Genji dash. And the travel speed would be about 25 meters per second, which is slightly faster than a Winston leap, but a deal slower than Genji's dash. This last part may or may not be necessary, but because Reaper is partially in Wraith form, he might also get some extra resistance while he's in that kind of leap phase. Perhaps only 10 or 20%. I'm not sure if I would want to go higher than that because it's not meant to replace Wraith form as a damage evasion tool, it's meant to replace teleport as an engagement tool. As for the name, funny enough, Shadow Step would probably still work. In summary, the character that was specifically made to be an anti-tank is simply not being used even when the characters he's a hard counter against are in nearly every match. He has difficulty engaging into a fight, and his teleport is clumsy, frustrating, and likely the only true out-of-combat ability in the game. I think all of that can be resolved by replacing the teleport with something else, and the example I gave would work quite well. So once more, I would definitely like for the Overwatch dev team to be aware of this issue and to consider possible solutions. So please remember to like and share this video. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.